Hey y'all, and welcome to this week's new book releases for the last week of June. Wow, can't believe we're here. This week I think we have more regular fiction books than some of the others, but there will be timestamps per genre, and I finally found it. I finally found the Fairy Loot book. Probably if I'd looked more through YA upcoming books, I would have realized this sooner, but doesn't matter. If you're new here, thank you for clicking. I'm Morgan, and let's go over the new books this week, and I hope you enjoy this list and find something awesome to pick up. Starting us out this week though is SciFi, and this first one was one that I was very anticipating, and I hope I can find a copy and get around to reading it. It's called The Archive Undying by Emma Miko Candon. War machines and AI gods run amok. When an AI dies, its city dies with it. When a city falls, it leaves a corpse behind. When that corpse runs off, only devotion can bring it back. When the robotic god of Akonma went mad, it destroyed everything it touched. It killed its priests, its city, and all its wondrous works. But in its final death throes, the god brought one thing back to life, its favorite child, Suni. For the 17 years since, Suni has walked the land like a ghost, unable to die, unable to age, and unable to forget the horrors he's seen. He's run as far as he can from the wreckage of his faith, drowning himself in drink, drugs, and men. But when Suni wakes up in the bed of the one man he never should have slept with, he finds himself on a path straight back into the world of the gods and machines. Okay, it says this is the first volume in the Downworld sequence, a sci-fi series where AI deities and brutal police states clash. It sounds so cool. The next one is more of a cutesy sounding sci-fi, I guess, kind of. I don't know, maybe cutesy is not the right word. It's called The Road to Roswell by Connie Willis. When level-headed Francie arrives in Roswell, New Mexico for her college roommate's UFO-themed wedding, complete with a true believer bridegroom, she can't help but roll her eyes at all the wide-eyed talk of aliens, words, which obviously don't exist. Imagine her surprise, then, when she's abducted by one. Odder still, her abductor is far from what the popular media have led her to expect, with a body like a tumbleweed and a mass of lightning-fast tentacles. Nor is Francie the only victim of the aliens' abduction spree. Before long, he's acquired a charming conman named Wade, a sweet little old lady with a casino addiction, a retiree with a huge RV and a love for old westerns, and a UFO-chasing nutjob who is thoroughly convinced that the aliens intend to probe them and or take over the planet. But the more Francie gets to know the alien, the more convinced she becomes that he's not an invader, that he's in trouble and she has to help him, only she doesn't know how or even what that trouble is. This is part alien abduction adventure, part road trip saga, part romantic comedy. It does. It just sounds so cutesy. Next, we're going to move into fantasy, the first one of which is going to be Gods of the Weirdwood by R.J. Barker, which I kind of thought had already come out, but I guess I was just confused. Ours is a land of many gods, and we are people with the ability to pick the worst of them. Sean Du Nahar is known as the Forester, a man who can navigate the dangerous deep forest like no one else. But once he was more. Once he belonged to the god of fire. Undine serves the goddess of the lost, a goddess of small things. When she ventures into a deep forest to find a lost child, Chan will be her guide. But in a land where territory is won and lost for uncaring gods, where temples of warrior monks pit one prophet against another, Chan will need to choose the forest or the fire, and his choice will have consequences for his entire world. I feel like that description was more the last place I read it, and different. And then this one's kind of more of an honorable mention fantasy because it's The Frugal Wizard's Handbook to Surviving Medieval England by Brandon Sanderson. It's already been out in ebook and audio, but if you would like to go pick up your physical copy, you can find that in Bookstores this week. And this one, it's a man wakes up in medieval England with no memories. None of who he is, why he's there, anything. And he starts to be chased by people who more or less appear to be from his own time. And also is unconfused about that. It's hilarious in its own way, though. It is. And now the YA fantasy that I'm like 80% certain is the June Fairy Loot book, because it's blurb even. Actually, it is because the blurb is the same as the Fairy Loot blurb. Okay. It's Sing Me to Sleep by Gabby Burton, and I don't think I'm saying the main character's name right. Just a fair warning. It's in this dark, seductive YA fantasy debut, a siren must choose between protecting her family and following her heart in this prejudiced kingdom where her existence is illegal. Same words. Should have found it sooner. Soroy Surkova survives on lies. A soldier in training at the most prestigious barracks in the kingdom, she lies about being a siren to avoid execution. At night, working as an assassin for a dangerous group of mercenaries, Soroy lies about her true identity. And to her family, Soroy tells the biggest lie of all, that she can control her siren powers and doesn't struggle constantly against an impulse to kill. As the top trainee in her class, Soroy would be headed for a bright future if it weren't for the need to keep her secrets out of the spotlight. But when a mysterious blackmailer threatens her sister, Soroy takes a dangerous job that will help her investigate. She becomes personal bodyguard to the crown prince. Soroy should hate Prince Hayes. After all, his father is the one who enforced the kingdom's brutal creature segregation laws. But when Hayes turns out to be kind, thoughtful, and charming, Soroy finds herself increasingly drawn to him, especially when they are forced to work together to stop a deadly killer who's plaguing the city. There's only one problem. Soroy is that deadly killer. And now we move into our large section of fiction. The first one sounds super interesting, possibly humorous. It's called The Wife App by Carolyn Mackler. Because every wife deserves a happy ending. Lauren, mother of twins, wakes up one morning when her wife alarm bell is sounding. She sleuths on her husband's phone and stumbles on a dirty secret that explodes her marriage. Madeline has it all: a penthouse apartment, a perfect daughter, and a no-strings-attached romps with handsome men. When she learns that she might lose her child to her ex in England, it stirs up decades-old personal tragedy. Sophie, with too much FOMO and never enough money, obsesses over her ex-husband's family 2.0, all while keeping her true desires hidden, even from herself. It starts as a joke during a tipsy night out, as Lauren, Madeline, and Sophie rail against everything wives do for free. Let's build an app that monetizes the mental load. Maybe get revenge on our exes in the process. Soon, the Wife app is born, and before long, it's the fastest growing startup in New York City. But when life intervenes, love intervenes. Ex-husbands intervene, and the consequences are bigger than anything Lauren, Madeline, or Sophie could have expected. Next up, we have The Rachel Incident by Carolyn O'Donoghue. It disguises itself as funny and coming of age. I don't know. Rachel is a student working at a bookstore when she meets James. It's love at first sight. Effervescent and insistently heterosexual, which I don't get the need to put that, James soon invites Rachel to be his roommate, and the two begin a friendship that changes the course of both their lives forever. Together, they run riot through the streets of Cork City, trying to maintain a bohemian existence while the threat of financial crash looms before them. When Rachel falls in love with her married professor, Dr. Fred Bryan, James helps her devise a reading at their local bookstore with the goal that she might seduce him afterwards. But Fred has other desires, so begins a series of secrets and compromises that intertwine the fates of James, Rachel, Fred, and Fred's glamorous, well-connected bourgeoisie wife. Aching with unrequited love, shot through with delicious, sparkling humor, The Rachel Incident is a triumph. Then we have Banyan Moon by Thao Tai. When Anne Tran gets the call that her fiercely beloved grandmother, Min, has passed away, her life is already at a crossroads. In the years since she's last seen Min, Anne has built a seemingly perfect life, a beautiful lake house, a charming professor boyfriend, and invites to elegant parties that bubble over with champagne and good taste. But it all crumbles with one positive pregnancy test. With both her relationship and carefully planned future now in question, Anne returns home to Florida to face her estranged mother, Hyung. Back in Florida, Hyung is simultaneously mourning her mother and resenting her for having the relationship with Anne that she never did. Then Anne and Hyung learn that Min has left them both the Banyan house, the crumbling old manor that was Anne's childhood home, in all its strange Gothic glory. Under the same roof for the first time in years, mother and daughter must face the simmering questions of their past and their uncertain futures, while trying to rebuild their relationship without the one person who's always held them together. Running parallel to this is Min's story, as she goes from a love-struck teenager living in the shadow of the Vietnam War to a determined young mother immigrating to America in search of a better life for her children. And when Anne makes a shocking discovery in the Banyan house attics, long-buried secrets come to light as it becomes clear how decisions Min made in her youth affected the rest of her life and beyond. It says it spans decades and continents from 1960s Vietnam to the wild swamplands of Florida coast. Now we'll move into suspense with Lay Your Body Down by Amy Clark. There's another name there. I don't want to butcher that though. After Dale Walker fled her small hometown and its cult-like church, she vowed never to return. The man she loved, Lars, left her to marry the local golden girl, Eve, and their romance is now the focus of Eve's viral blog espousing the pastor's conservative philosopher about women and marriage. But 6 years later, Lars is suddenly killed, and she's convinced it hasn't been an accident. When Dale returns to her hometown for the funeral, she discovers the now megachurch and the insidious patriarchal teachings of Pastor Rick Franklin has grown not only in size but in influence. Eve was clearly discontent in her marriage, despite the carefully constructed noble wife positivity of her blog posts, and Dale knows better than anyone just how far she will go to get what she wants. Dale is determined to cut through the church's lies and corruption to find out who killed Lars, even if it means confronting the religious trauma she spent years trying to bury. Sounds promising. Then our next one is more of a mystery. It's Charlotte Isles is Not a Detective by Katie Segal. And the downside of being a famous child detective is that sooner or later you have to grow up. As a kid, Charlotte Isles' uncanny sleuthing abilities made her a minor celebrity. But in high school, she hung up her detective's hat and stashed away the signature blue landline in her office, aka garage, convinced that finding her adult purpose would be as easy as tracking down missing pudding cups or locating stolen diamonds. Now, 25, Charlotte has a nagging fear that she has hit her peak in middle school. She's living with her mom, scrolling through job listings, and her love life consists mostly of first dates. When it comes to knowing what to do next, Charlotte hasn't got a clue. And then her old blue phone rings. Reluctantly, Charlotte is pulled back into the mystery-solving world she knew just one more time. But that world is a whole lot more complicated for an adult. As a kid, she was able to crack the case and still get her homework done on time. Now she's dealing with dead bodies, missing persons, and villains who actually see her as a viable threat. And the detective skills she was once so eager to never use again are the only things that can stop a killer ready to make sure her next retirement is permanent. And our last one is more of a cozy mystery. It's A Most Agreeable Murder by Julia Silas. It's a cozy mystery. It's also set in Victorian, somewhere around then times. Feisty, passionate Beatrice Steele has never fit the definition of a true lady, according to the strict code of conduct that reigns in Swampshire, her small English township. Okay, so it does say Quiz in England. She's terrible at needlework, has absolutely no musical ability, and her artwork is so bad it frightens people. Nevertheless, she lives a perfectly agreeable life with her marriage-scheming mother, pranks her father, and 2 younger sisters, beautiful Louisa and forgettable Mary. Rude. But she harbors a dark secret. She is obsessed with the true crime cases she reads about in the newspaper. If anyone in her etiquette-obsessed community found out, she'd be deemed a morbid creep and banished from respectable society forever. For her family's sake, she's vowed to put her obsession behind her, because eligible bachelor Edmund Croxworth is set to attend the approaching annual ball, and the Steele family hopes that Louisa will steal his heart. If not, Martin Grubb, their disgusting cousin, will inherit the family's estate, and they will be ruined, or even worse, forced to move to France. So Beatrice must be on her best behavior, which is made difficult when a disgraced yet alluring detective inexplicably shows up at the ball. Beatrice is just holding things together when Croxworth drops dead in the middle of a minuet. As the storm rages outside, the evening descends into a frenzy of panic, fear, and betrayal, as it becomes clear they are trapped with the killer. Contending with competitive card games, tricky tonics, and Swampshire's infamous squelch holes, Beatrice must rise above decorum and decency to pursue justice and her own desires before anyone else is murdered. I'm sorry, some of the names and stuff for that one are just funny. That's all for this week's list. Hopefully you found something intriguing and exciting that you might want to add to your TBR or pick up. There's definitely a lot of them on there that do sound cool, and like I said, that one that I think we might be getting if we're, you're fairly people's too. I think we're getting that one. And oh yeah, there's this one more that I've already said was coming out twice, and somehow its day keeps getting pushed back, but it is already available in script as the audiobook. It is. That's The Crown of Ivy and Glass, which now again, I'm going to start taking screenshots of its release date, and so every time it changes, I have proof that I'm not crazy. But thank you so much for being here and clicking on this video. And if you liked my content, maybe you'll consider checking out some of my other videos, like the July TBR game. It was really fun. I'm excited. Looking forward to July's list. And any of my other content if you do enjoy it. And subscribe to come back for next week's new releases. Thank you guys for being here. Hope you're finding something awesome, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.